Alright, in this video I'm going to be talking about a problem that I struggle greatly with, which is dealing with intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts is something that most people, unless they've actually experienced it, and most people will get thoughts that they don't like, but it's one story to get a thought that you don't like and it just passes through your head. It's a different story to have an obsession and a thought that continuously comes into your mind and induces dissonance and induces turmoil in your life. They're totally different. Unless you're a person that has experienced that, you don't really understand that. That's the reason why for people who suffer with OCD, at least this has been my personal experience, you're almost invisible in the world. Because most people that you talk to about your problems and your obsessions and the thoughts that you're getting that are inducing all this anxiety, they don't understand a word you're saying. In fact, most people's conception of OCD is that it's just this desire and tendency to be neat. If that's what it was, I would pour a glass of wine and celebrate. Because that's not what it is. That doesn't even classify as a fraction of a problem. When we're looking at OCD, that's not what it is. OCD is a reality-altering and warping condition. It's based on fear, and fear can warp and alter one's reality. In fact, it's actually listed as being second only to schizophrenia in terms of its effect and ability to debilitate a person's and hamper down a person's life. It is very overlooked, and struggling with it, you're often alone. You often don't. If you go to a therapist, that's great. Not all of them, not all your therapists are necessarily able to understand you. I've known individuals who aren't psychologists that have been more helpful to me than a therapist. So just because someone's got a plaque up on the wall doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to understand you. Because unless a person has experienced this, has personal experience with it, they don't really have much in the way of, they don't have much perspective on it because they never experienced it. I have never experienced schizophrenia. If you brought someone to me that has schizophrenia, I can research about it. I can try to understand them, but I will never be able to understand him like a person that has schizophrenia. And a person that has experienced schizophrenia is going to have a perspective on it that I can't have. Now, I don't want to experience schizophrenia in order to get that perspective and understanding of it. I don't want to have to do that. OCD, I don't fully understand it myself either. I've just experienced it. And experiencing it gives me this perspective. And the same is true for other people who suffer from OCD. Same is true for most people who, especially people who are suffering from serious OCD, like pure O. I'm not talking about neatness and stuff, mild OCD. I'm talking about really serious OCD. Well, here I'm going to go ahead and give some of my thoughts about intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts regarding obsessions or anything, maybe when you're driving or whatever, intrusive thoughts in whatever context of whatever content, they arise due to the attractive response to fear. If you've ever stood atop a bridge or a balcony overlooking a steep drop, right, a high bridge or balcony, and suppose you're acrophobic, right? If you're afraid of heights and you're standing there, you're going to get the thought of jumping off, of climbing on the railing. You're going to get the urge, even the desire to do that. You don't actually want to, but for some reason, you feel the urge to climb on that railing. Maybe you're curious about how it would make other people around you react, what it would feel like to be that close to death. And if you're really afraid, this usually happens if you're afraid. If you're not afraid, you might, out of curiosity, think about it, but it doesn't induce anxiety and you don't have an urge. But when you're afraid, you get that urge. And the urge, that and the thoughts, they induce anxiety and they make you almost distrust yourself. And so you back away from the railing because you don't want to, you're afraid that you might accidentally jump off. This is an intrusive thought. It's distressing. It induces a lot of anxiety. It induces distrust in oneself. And then maybe if you're just, you might also be standing on the bridge and you might trust yourself, but you might be afraid of someone pushing you off because, again, you don't want to fall off. And so now every person that walks by gives you anxiety. And even if there's no one around, you can't stand there and enjoy the view because you're always afraid that somebody is going to come up from behind you and push you off. This, again, they're very much related. In both of those cases, you're dealing with something that is tangible. You can verify to yourself that you are not falling. You can verify to yourself that there's nobody around that was trying to push you, or nobody around at all. You can verify that to yourself. I'll use another analogy. I think this is an even better one. This is something I've experienced. Laying in my bed, in the dark, at night, under the covers, and I start thinking about tarantulas, or I look up a YouTube video, or I see a YouTube video that has a tarantula in it, or a documentary of it, and now I start to think, what if there's a tarantula in my room? What if there's a tarantula in my room and it's going to crawl up onto my bed frame and it's going to jump on my face and attack me when I least suspect it? I get that thought, and what happens? It induces anxiety. And so now I start to, it induces so much anxiety that I can't actually sleep. I have to turn on the light, check under my bed, check behind my bed frame, check under the cabinets, check under the desk, check throughout the room, in order to verify to myself there's no tarantula. When I turn off the light, though, still, there's going to be what if I missed it? And any sound that I hear in the room, maybe a rattling of paper that could be caused by the air conditioning unit, or by the vents, I immediately associate that with a tarantula. Right? I heard a sound, rattling paper. Oh, that was a tarantula. And so suddenly I start to think that there is something there that there isn't. If I'm at home by myself, I have this for a long time. I still do sometimes. If I'm at home by myself and I hear some noises in the home, I start to think there's someone there. There's something there, and I become afraid of moving about the house. I lock myself in whatever room I'm in, and any noise I hear, like a wood contraction, I immediately think that is somebody, or that in particular, that is like something is there. Even in that situation, you can still go out there and check and verify. In the case of your intrusive thoughts and your obsessions, it is the same concept. The thought is the drop from the bridge or the balcony. The thought is the tarantula. The thought is is whoever or whatever may be in the home. That's what the thought is. But because the thought is intangible, because the thought is immaterial, you cannot verify whether or not it's there or it's going to happen. You cannot verify, like if you're getting thoughts, let's say of a sexual and the intrusive nature. You can't verify whether whatever you're afraid of is happening or not. If you're standing on the bridge, you can verify that you're not falling off. But if you're getting intrusive sexual thoughts, how do you verify that you're not falling off? How do you verify that they don't define you? How do you verify that? If you get a thought wishing something bad to happen to somebody that you love, how do you verify that that's not going to happen? That deals with the future and uncertainty. How do you verify that? That's the distinction. It's like, what if let's say you're eating at a buffet. You get a thought that said that what if the part of the spoon that goes in the soup touched the handle of another spoon that goes into another soup or something, where everyone touches with their hands and God knows where they've been, and it could have coronavirus on it or something. And if you place it back into the soup, that someone else with a compromised immune system is going to come and try to eat from there, and they're going to get sick, and they're going to die, and it's all your fault, and you're morally responsible. How do you verify that someone isn't going to get sick? You can't. How do you verify that bump on the road when you were driving wasn't someone's cat? You were paying attention, but how do you know? I mean, that's the fundamental difference. Is that in the case of OCD, you're experiencing the standing on the bridge, standing at the balcony, but instead of it being with an actual situation or something involving, even in the case of tarantula, like a physical being, instead of it involving something tangible, it's all intangible and immaterial and very difficult